advantage as the 3 seed. They were also 0-3 against the Pistons in the regular season, although I don't think the Knicks of the current vintage compare that much to the regular season. So I think the bigger factor is that they get home court advantage, not that they avoided the Pistons. I don't think the two teams were the same as when they played in the regular season. The Knicks are going to have 9 days, I think, 9 or 10 days off.
9.
Between games. That is a really good thing for OG Anunoby.
I guess it'll be on the 9th day. It's Tuesday. Last play Sunday. So.
OG Anunoby, hopefully will be back from that hamstring issue. Josh.
Yeah, but it seems he'll be ready to go for game 1.
Yeah. So, you have one team that's well rested and one team that's coming off back-to-back 7-game series. The Cavs will have some rhythm. Obviously the Knicks Bontemps were playing their best basketball of the season. Just blew the 76ers right off of the court. This matchup, the Cavs obviously they are going to probably try to lean on their front court just as they did in this series because the Cavs front court depth is stronger than the Knicks. But the Knicks front court historically has given these Cavs problems. Specifically, Mitch Robinson, who has kicked the Cavs in the backside numerous occasions. And so that will be a key, I think, early thing to look at. Obviously, whether or not the Knicks are able to continue to get this, the Knicks offensive production has been dramatically impressive. I would argue that of the 8 teams left in the second round, do I want to say this? Do the Cavs have the weakest defense? They certainly have the weakest defense of the remaining teams. The Cavs defense is going to be stressed against that New York offense. But Bontemps, how do you see this shaping up?
I think the Knicks are pretty heavy favorites with their recent form coming into the series.
I'm going to pick the Knicks. Bontemps being shifted to the Knicks.
Might be. I'm going to pick the Knicks in 5. The Cavs have been pretty awful for these through these first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I mean, the irony, and they have been. Like Brian will tell. I mean, Brian's the leader of Cavs Corner. Will you not say this has been a very disappointing showing through the first 2 rounds, despite them being in the conference finals? Have they played lower than what your expectations would be?
I mean, I think the thing to point out is they're 8-6 so far in the playoffs. So if a team is 8-6, they very clearly have exploitable flaws, and also there are flaws that undercut them. And
now that being said, these are the 2 teams that at the start of the year were expected to be here. That is the irony of the situation. The Cavs and the Knicks entered the season as the co-favorites in the East for a reason. They both have a lot of talent. You saw in this Game 7 today, the Cavs played much like the team they were supposed to be. That is why this has been sort of an infuriating run for them, because they have not really looked like that team for the most of these playoffs. They have wheezed their way through a Raptors series where the Raptors were all banged up with injuries and couldn't really score. And they then wheezed their way through this series against the Pistons, who had one guy who could really handle the ball and often couldn't really score, and still almost won the series anyway. But in Game 7, you saw Donovan Mitchell look like a star. You saw the bigs play great. They hit shots on the perimeter. They did all the stuff they can do. And they're going to have to play like they did in Game 7 repeatedly if they're going to beat the Knicks with the way the Knicks are playing. Now,
hey McMahon. Fresh quote from Kenny Atkinson.
Uh-oh.
The tactical adjustment we made was avoiding Asar Thompson. We were just like, if he's near the ball, throw it to somebody else. Bontemps is like, put him on the bench. He's not a starter.
But listen, and then yes, avoid him.
Bontemps.
And
no, it's
invite
fine.
him. It was avoid him on one end and invite him to shoot it on the other.
That's true.
It's true. I mean, they should have. I mean, they would have been better off benching him, honestly, and playing him in different off the bench instead. But anyway, that's a separate discussion.
Tony Allen, one of the all-time great perimeter defenders. I forgot where he said this. It might have been when he was doing some podcasts and stuff with Chris Vernon, but he basically said they're getting guys who have jumpers like me out of the league now. And Asar Thompson is a modern day,
he's a bigger, stronger, faster Tony Allen. That's what he is.
That's what he is. And we'll see if he can develop a jump shot.
The Warriors' 2015 title run turned when they were down 2-1 against Memphis, and they started putting their center, Andrew Bogut, on Tony Allen.
Listen, man, I'll never forget this book that I read when I was a kid about Ted Williams. And Ted Williams said that the pitcher that affected him the most in his career was Bob Feller. That he would think about Bob. If Bob Feller was pitching like game 3 of a series, he'd be thinking about him before the game 1 of the series.
Yeah.
And so that's the greatest. I thought it was like one of the greatest compliments you could ever give was that Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters of all time, would be thinking about a pitcher, would get in his head 2 days before he pitched against him. I remember when I covered the series Memphis against Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Allen, this is Durant, like pretty much when he was just ascending into being, I don't know if he won the MVP that year, but
was that 2012 series when they had all the overtime games?
I think this was the infamous Mr. Unreliable headline series.
That's correct. It's one of the great series I've ever covered, 7-game series. The Thunder won in 7. And I remember by game 4, because it was in Memphis, Tony Allen had hounded Durant so much that there would be times where Durant would come off, he would run around screens, and sometimes they would stagger screens. They would run him off around 2 screens, and Durant would catch the ball. I saw this multiple times. Durant would catch the ball at the top of the key. The screens having caught Allen. Allen would be 10 feet behind him, 8 feet behind him, and Durant would immediately turn his body and protect the ball because Allen had been there so much that he just assumed this is 7-foot Kevin Durant. How tall is Tony Allen? 6'4"?
6'5".
6'4", 6'5" Tony Allen. And what I'm saying is this is one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game. And Allen, like Ted Williams and Bob Feller, Allen was in his head. That his defense was so strong that he didn't even have to be there to defend him. And so when you compare somebody to Tony Allen, it is defensively, it is a very high compliment.
Ausar Thompson is awesome.
I voted Ausar Thompson first team all defense. He's a tremendous defensive player.
Offensively, he's got a lot of room for growth. That's all.
This is what makes the playoffs so awesome. It's why it's so incredibly fun, is as you go through them and you get deeper and deeper into the playoffs, your weaknesses as a team and as individual players really get exposed and there's nowhere to hide. And it's what makes getting through the 4 rounds so fun to watch because you have to watch how teams evolve and react and learn. And, Ausar Thompson's still a super young player. He's got a very long future ahead of him. Hopefully he becomes a better offensive player to match how incredibly impactful his defense is because he does some of the most fun defensive stuff you'll see anybody do in the league. But to go back to Cavs Knicks, the thing I'm going to be really interested in is Donovan Mitchell and James Harden have looked tired at times during this series and during this run. They've had to play every other day for a month. As you said, they've had to play 2 7-game series. The Knicks are very rested. The Knicks have a lot of guys they can throw at both of those guys. And the Cavs, ironically, the guy who's probably best suited to guard Jalen Brunson on the Cavs is Keon Ellis, who's barely played. Other than that, they don't really have a lot of guys to throw at Jalen Brunson. And again, we just talked about Ausar Thompson. Between him and Jalen Duren and some of these other guys, the Pistons have several guys that they could sort of just ignore, right? When the Knicks are rolling out there, assuming OG is good, and by all indications he'll be ready to go for game 1, like you can maybe ignore Josh Hart, but Josh Hart is a terrific shot creator. He gets in the paint, he creates shots for other guys. But especially if they bring in Landry Shamet off the bench, they bring in Deuce McBride off the bench, like the Knicks are an offensive juggernaut, especially the way they're playing. And with the perimeter guys the Cavs have, the Knicks can really take advantage of that, I think. So to me, this is about, can Donovan Mitchell and James Harden play at a high level consistently, which I think they're going to need to in this series? And what are the Cavs going to do to try to slow down Jalen Brunson? Because that to me is going to be a real challenge for them based off the personnel they're going to have out there.
Well, and the strength of the Cavs defense is obviously their 2 big guys, is Mobley and Allen. And against the Pistons, Mobley and Allen could pack the paint and basically just put a wall around the rim. And you cannot do that, especially against the Knicks starting lineup where they've got self-proclaimed greatest shooting big man of all time. And, they can put 5 guys out there that, even Josh Hart, you have to respect him as a 3-point threat.
I mean, he shot 39% from 3 this year. That's been one of the huge revelations of the season.
And Cat, you have to fear as a 3-point threat. If Anunoby's healthy, you have to fear him as a 3-point threat. They can spread the floor where that's the biggest weakness of the Pistons is just that you can really clog things up for them on the defensive end.
And the Knicks also have a lot of guys to throw at Donovan Mitchell, too, in particular, I think. Between Mikal Bridges and Hart, they can put McBride on him a little bit, could maybe even try to put OG on him. Like, they got a lot of guys that could cycle through and wear on him. And, he was incredible today, but he's got to be like he was in Game 7, I think, consistently if they want to beat the Knicks.
Donovan and Harden have been both very up and down in the postseason. Now, what the Cavs might say is that's the point, is that they have the two of them to share the ball handling, to share the offensive creation, to share the, getting hammered and going to the basket, to share all that stuff so that they have the redundancy. That's what they would probably say is the whole point of this, is that Donovan doesn't have to be great. Because a couple of years ago, like against Boston, he was trying to carry them and he eventually broke down in the series.
I don't know that he has to carry them. He has to be great, though.
He's got to be a lot better than he was in this series. He was a passenger for a lot of this series. He's got to be doing what he did today. He doesn't have to be necessarily the best player on the court, but he was just not very good. But again, by Donovan Mitchell standards, his standards very high.
He had a 31-point game, a 35-point game, a 43-point game. And then today he had 26, 7 rebounds, 8 assists.
Today was truly that one half, the 39-point half and the 43-point game. And today were the 2 times you were like, Donovan Mitchell looks like the guy on the court. And for them to beat this Knicks team, I think he's got to play like that a lot more than twice. He's got to be really good.
Probably 3 or 4 times.
At least.
Yeah, but we'll be charting that series very closely. I will be joining Bontemps for that series.
You guys just have fun together.
Yeah, got some Cleveland days coming up. Some big Cleveland days. All right,